Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to lesson number 38 of our drawing series, Drawing Techniques for Beginners. This sees the start of our new project, and I know that talking to a lot of you over on the Facebook group, which is called Tutorial Tuesdays Beginners to Pros, if this is the first time that you visit us, go and check our group out. But speaking to a few of you over on the group, you've been quite excited to start this project. It's a picture of an old barn house, or an old barn actually, that I found over on Pixabay, which is a royalty-free app that you can get on your phones, and all of the photographs on there are there's no copyright on them, so there's never any issue about you reproducing them and whatnot. But they're also really high resolution, so there's some fantastic images on there. We're going to go with the grid method again today, but what you'll notice that I've done with the grid is I've made the squares a lot bigger on this one. I think that when we're drawing things that have got very straight lines, in which case we can use a ruler for a lot of this, but it's a lot easier to draw, and by making the squares slightly bigger we get a little bit more of a freehand element to this. So we're going to plot this out today, and I'm really excited about this project. So I'm starting with the HB pencil. What I would suggest is maybe use a 2H to begin with. I'm using the HB so that you can see a little bit better on the video itself. So we're going to look for this initial point here. Now I've not numbered these and labelled these the grid here, the squares on this one, because obviously by going slightly bigger it's a lot easier for me to see. I've only got 3 going down the page and 4 going across. So we're going to start with finding the point or the tip of this building. So we're looking somewhere there, and I can see that it does actually come down to there and just over halfway, but slightly down there. Now I've actually got a 30cm ruler that I'm going to be using for some of this, so just making sure that those lines do roughly match up. So we're going to come and look for this reference point now. So it's about halfway up this and somewhere there, which then comes out to here, and then somewhere in that zone. Now with this building, it is rather dilapidated and it's falling to pieces, but we have got some relatively straight lines in there. But I guess you could sort of freehand these lines in because it's not a brand new building and it does have a lot of character to it. Could actually probably make quite a good job of this without necessarily freehanding it in. So any of these shorter lines I may just have a go at freehanding those in. Again, just to train our eye really, and just see if we can improve our skill level. So what I'm going to look for now is I'm going to come to this point here. So I'm going to look for this point and I'm going to draw this line across, so I can see that it's in this area here. It's lower down than this point there, which I've tried to map out. So it's lower down than that, in that zone there. And I'm just lightly going to put that in. Don't worry too much about the details for now. We will get to the details. Okay, so before I start trying to figure this out, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to the top here, because once I've got this line in, it's going to then allow me to have the... This is something I can definitely get the bearing point of here. So this edge is coming in into about this area, and then somewhere there. So I'm quite happy that I could freehand this in. Now, once you've got your sketch out, if you're not happy with the straightness of the lines, you can then go over it with your ruler. That's not a problem. Okay, so we're going to have a look where this line intercepts our reference line. And it's somewhere there. And it's... I've got that angle about right. Now, like I've said before, when we're plotting things out, the more lines and the more detail you get down, the easier it is then to figure out and plot where certain things will sit. So your initial lines may not be in the right place, but then as you build on your drawing, you'll find it easier then to... So I'm just noticing there's a piece of wood that's coming down here, so I'm just putting that in because this line here doesn't sit level with that. So this now joins up to this, and you can understand now why I went back up to the top here, because I could have started drawing this, but it would have been a little bit more guesswork. So we try and plan the drawing so that we've got as many lines that are crossing the grid lines as possible. And so now I'm going to come down into this area here. So this vertical line, which I guess leads into a window. And then I'm going to continue and try to, let's find this point here. Is there anything that I've already got in my drawing that lines up with this? So if I come across from there to there, I can see that this corner, this edge that I have in, lines up nicely with where this part of the roof comes in. Now, don't forget, we have got a slight dog leg in this. So making sure that I pay attention to those details. And then this does continue out. It's not quite halfway. And I'm not worrying too much about the straightness because I can see that there is some undulation and some non-straight areas in there. I can see that it looks as though some of the tiles are missing in there, like we've got here, and you can kind of see through the slats of the wood. So we've got a pretty vertical line now, which is coming down the side. So the next thing we want to pay attention to is how far down this building comes before this grass starts. So we've got this rough area of grass, which does, and I'm just lightly getting this mapped out. I'm not paying too much attention really. It's just going to give me a vague idea of where the ground starts. So we've got some lovely details in here that we're going to have a lot of fun with. So let's work on this far edge now. So we're almost at the edge of the paper there with another vertical line, which I guess is this sort of outhouse part of the building. Now that's, so we've got a funny shape to this. It's, from our perspective, it looks as though there's a rounded edge to it, but I'm guessing that what we've got is we've got something similar to this that's maybe slightly buckled and fallen to pieces over time. So quite happy with that. We're not going to worry too much about the details for now. Let's just get the bulk of this image down. So I'm going to start working in this midsection. Let's put this window in first, because again we've got some reference points here. So this edge here, this slight dog leg again, so there's the big open window at the top that I guess would have been for, I guess there would have been a loft area up there that they would have, I don't really know what they do in, is this for storing cattle possibly? Maybe hay? And we've got some details in there that we are going to be able to pick out later on. Like I do say, I haven't done this just yet for this drawing, but what I like to do is I like to have my iPad in front of me with the actual reference on there, because my iPad's got a much better resolution and I can pick up details better on the iPad than I can in here. So there might be some areas that, because I'm only using a relatively cheap printer on cheap paper, I'm sometimes going to struggle to pick out the details. But when I start going into the details on the drawing, I'm definitely going to be having my reference image on my iPad in front of me. Any tablet will probably do, or a PC. And I think we're going to be able to get a bit of detail in these darker areas. So we have now got, and this isn't going straight, this isn't a vertical line here. It's slightly leaning. So we want to try and capture that if possible. And that's coming all the way down to the bottom onto our level of the ground, the grass. And we're going to see where this roof comes across, so it's slightly further down than halfway. Is there anything that I've got on my drawing that I can... Okay, we have. So this angle here, this piece of wood that I drew in, we're slightly lower than that. So I need to make sure that I am just a fraction lower. Now I can see from here that that distance is greater than it would be on my drawing. That distance needs to be here somewhere, which means that I'm slightly out with this over here. So I've come slightly too far down with this chunk of wood. And this is what I was talking to you about. Once we start getting lines down, they don't need to be in the perfect position to start with. But what they then do is they then give us a reference point later on for something else. So I can see now that this is coming down, and again it's further down than this, and it's possibly there. So I now need to make sure, and I'm going to use my straight edge for this. I'm going to come up in this area. And I've just come away from my ruler there. I'm trying to keep this paper orientated the same way, just so that you get a better experience when you're watching this. I would be ordinarily turning this around and making sure that I've got things perfectly positioned. Okay, so we then have a relatively straight line coming almost into the edge of my grid line there. And this is, again, these are going to be two parallel lines, that one and that one there. So again, I think I've now come down slightly too far. I think the edge of this roof needs to be somewhere there, because I can see how far down I've come in relation to the edge of the roof. I'm still slightly too high. So where am I out? That seems okay. I've just made this slightly too long. Okay. And just boxing that off. I'm having loads of fun with this channel, guys, and the Facebook group. Thank you so much for making it a welcoming group, and thank you for supporting the channel. Everybody that's subscribed and hit the like button makes a huge difference to the channel. It's getting it out there to more people, so thank you so much for that. Don't forget to leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you think of this series, and are you excited about doing this project? Have you done a landscape before? If you're totally new to the group, don't forget to say hello. We're quite a friendly group. It's one of the most friendly groups that I've come across on Facebook. We've been going a few months now, and we've hit 3,000 members of the group, which is fantastic. So thank you all so much for the continued support. Like I say, it makes a big difference, and it's fantastic seeing every now and then I'm scrolling through things like Instagram, and I'm seeing some of your work popping up there, which is unbelievable. Seeing some of the projects that we've done. So I've just added in a little bit of detail. I went slightly too low down with the edge of that roof there. And again, this is all just part of the process, a part of the learning how to figure out where things are. I'm looking at the corner of this building now, and again, it's slightly leaning outwards. And we want to make sure that we do emphasize those small details, because it is those small details that are going to give us a look of something that is old and has character. We don't want to make things appear a straight angle if they're not a straight angle. So I'm going to now just plot in some of the details in and around this outhouse here. We've got what looks like some steps that were leading possibly down and around, possibly, by the look of it. Again, I'll have a better look at this on the iPad. So what do we have then? We've got these two supporting beams. So I can see that this one is about halfway, just less than halfway in here, and it's coming right up to this area that I'm in now. And it's not quite coming down to that ground level. I'm possibly okay there. So this grass does seem to come more in this area there. So I'm possibly okay there. That's something not to worry too much about. Okay, so now I can see that this angle that I created early on lines up perfectly with this. So I am going to come down there, and then I'm just checking the distance between this and this is similar to this and this. And actually, I'm not a million miles away. And this is the process that we go through. I know that there's a lot of you that want to just jump straight into doing freehand work, and it's something that I can remember wanting to do straight from the off when I first started drawing. But learning how to use the grid, learning how to use your dividers, all of those techniques, what they do is they train your eye, and that's the skill. We've got the pencil skills, how to hold the pencil, how to shade, how light works, things like that, which are very important, possibly the most important aspect. But plotting the drawing out, we can learn over time. Now we've got this cross beam going across here, which is slightly above that roof there. It's behind these, so making sure that I get that in on the drawing. I've got the rough width of that. Need to put the extra side in there. So I would say that what this is going to be quite a technical drawing, and we're going to have a few angles in there. We're going to be able to talk about perspectives and things like that. If I was going to do this perfectly, I would do this in a I'd do this in a 2-point perspective, I guess, coming in there, which we'll talk about a little bit. It's something that it's nice to understand perspectives and things like that, but it's not necessarily essential. So we've got some detailing in there of this sort of wooden stand. Which I'm guessing is part of this step structure. And like I say, I'm using an HB at the moment. I wouldn't necessarily be advising you to use an HB in this situation because it's a little bit dark and it can get slightly messy. I'd probably use a 2H or a 4H. I'm just removing a couple of those lines now that were behind it because to give the impression that these wooden beams are in front, I need to make sure that I don't have any of the lines of the background going through that. So just, again, being aware of those, and we will be removing those as we go along with graphite with the value. But I'd just like to keep on top of that. But yeah, try using something that's not quite as dark initially. So we've got this center beam now, which is and it doesn't come up quite as high, it just peeps over the top of the roof angle. And we have a beam of wood that is going behind. And coming out there, followed by our final beam or supporting structure, I guess it is. And then the final one, which looks to me as though he's going down into the ground. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 of these uprights on this side, and then we can see one on the far side. So we need to get the distance of that in. It's coming about halfway. So the one looks like it comes down lower than the others. This one to me looks and has the appearance that it is going into the ground. So again, let's make sure that we draw what we see, not what we think we see. So we've got these diagonal, they look almost like handrails now. So I'm going to just turn the reference around so that we can see these now. And it's a good trick to try and adopt sometimes, is turning your picture around and you start seeing things differently. I'm going to go for the first one because I can see that it does come across my guideline there, and it comes that's the sort of angle. And it comes behind these. And just to make sure that they line up, maybe use your straight edge just to line them up. You don't want these two lines being lower down than these two because it then gives the illusion that they're not connected. Just checking the thickness of them. I think that this second one is slightly thicker. We've got a lot of shadowing under there as well, which is going to give us a wonderful opportunity to create some depth and dimension. Now we can't see the third one, the bottom one sticking out. We can see the first two. Remove some of those lines from behind just so that they are giving us the impression of running in front of those. And we have another upright behind them. Just going to use my ruler to make sure that they are. So I was slightly out with that. So again, it's an important tool to have at your disposal. Now, these wooden slats are behind these poles, and you can see that because the uprights aren't obscured. You can see all of the uprights, but these parts of the post are. Now, our bottom slat here is running level with this top one. And just use this straight edge just to make sure that I am in the right area. So then our second one, and then the third one just sits above our guideline there. So I can see our third one's in there, which means number 2 is in there. And actually we're quite accurate with that. So again, it's these little things that we're adding the whole way through that are just helping with our accuracy. An upright behind those there as well. And don't rush this stage, you know, take as long as you need. I'm probably going faster than I need to, simply because I'm trying to keep this to about a 30-minute video for you, and we're almost there now, just so that you get the general idea of what we're doing and how we're doing it and why we're doing it. But you can take as much time as you like. And then I'm just going to come in with this diagonal one. Which is connecting this bottom rung here. And I'm going up into that angle. There. And it's behind the upright, so making sure that I leave spaces for that. Okay, just smudged a little bit down here, so I'm just going to remove some of that with my kneaded eraser. Just being careful that we don't get too much of this graphite. That's one of the reasons I don't like to use the HB pencil straight away, because they do smudge around. These Caran D'ache pencils which I use are, they're quite loose, the graphite's quite loose. But I'm quite happy with that. We're sort of at 28 minutes. I think you can get the idea of what we're doing. So continue adding some of the details in there. Don't go too detaily in these darker areas, because we need to build the values up in the lighter areas as well as those dark areas. So don't go putting too much in there to start with, and then hopefully next lesson we will start adding some value into the darker areas and start to bring in some of the details out. But I think this is going to be quite a nice drawing, possibly 4 or 5 sessions on this one. It might not take as long as some of the other ones. So thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to join the Facebook group Tutorial Tuesdays Beginner to Pro. Request to join, I'll accept you. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and leave any comments down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Hit subscribe, smack the notifications button, follow me on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter.